All right, let's talk about something that is so deeply human, but something we almost never talk about out loud, and that's shame. It's this really powerful emotion that can quietly run the show in our lives, but just understanding it, that's the very first step towards stepping back into the light. So let's figure out how. You know that feeling, right? That little nagging voice in the back of your head? That sense that no matter what you do, you're just fundamentally falling short. If any of that sounds familiar, I promise you, you are not alone. That right there, that's the universal whisper of shame. So, to really get a handle on this, let's start with the basics. What is core shame, really? And maybe just as important, what isn't it?
Okay, this distinction right here is absolutely crucial. You have to get this. Guilt says, I made a mistake. It's about our actions, our behavior. But shame cuts so much deeper. It doesn't say we did something bad. It tells us we are bad. It's not about the action. It's about our identity.
The researcher Brené Brown just nails it with this definition. Look at those words: flawed, unworthy, love, and belonging. You see, shame goes right for the jugular. It attacks our most fundamental human need, that need to connect, by convincing us we just don't deserve it.
And here's the crazy part, the thing that keeps us so stuck. We feel ashamed, and then we feel ashamed for feeling ashamed. It's this vicious cycle that just spins and spins in secrecy and silence, which, by the way, is exactly where shame gets all of its power.
So where in the world does a feeling this powerful come from? I mean, we aren't born feeling this way. Core shame is built. It's constructed over time, piece by painful piece. Let's take a look at the emotional blueprint.
And here's the key. Core shame starts with ruptures in our interpersonal bridges. You know, those vital connections we have with other people. When those links get broken, especially when we're young, it leaves this profound mark on our sense of who we are.
This process starts way back, in infancy. Our sense of safety is literally built through connection with our caregivers. So when those connections are shaky or broken, it creates this distress that gets hardwired into the emotional, nonverbal part of our brain. And over time, after enough of those experiences, our brain creates a story to make sense of it all, an unconscious story that says, something must be wrong with me.
And, these abstract ruptures are often backed up by very concrete, very painful messages. Phrases like the ones you see here, whether they were said out loud or just sort of implied, they become the actual bricks and mortar of our internal shame story. They teach us again and again that our real feelings, our authentic selves, are just wrong.
Okay, so if shame is wired so deeply into who we are, how does it actually show up in our day-to-day lives? Well, a lot of the time, it appears through the defenses we build to protect ourselves from its pain. You can think of these defenses as emotional armor. They're coping mechanisms we create to hide our perceived flaws from the world and, honestly, a lot of the time, from ourselves. The only problem is, this armor is heavy, and it often ends up preventing the very connection we're so desperate for.
And one of the most common, most recognizable masks out there, it's perfectionism. We're not talking about healthy ambition here. This is a defense mechanism. It's driven by this deep fear that if we slip up, if we make one mistake, our fundamental flaw will be exposed for everyone to see.
So when we feel that sting of shame, a really common instinct is just to withdraw, to pull back. We move away from people, we isolate, we avoid parties, we keep secrets. The logic deep down is pretty simple. If nobody really sees me, then nobody can see my flaws. Another response is to do the opposite. You move toward people, but not in a genuine way. This is all about trying to earn our worth through people-pleasing or codependency. We perform, we try to be perfect for them, hoping that if we can just get their approval, we can finally silence that inner voice that tells us we're not enough. And finally, the third response is to fight back. We move against the feeling. When shame hits, we might lash out, point fingers, blame someone else, or even try to shame them. It's really just a desperate attempt to push that painful feeling outside of ourselves and put it onto somebody else. Okay, I know that looking at what shame is, how it's built, and how it shows up, that can feel pretty heavy. But here's the really, really good news. What has been constructed can be reconstructed. So now, let's talk about the path forward. The path to healing and reclaiming who you really are. So just think about that for a second. If shame gets all of its power from being hidden, from being unspoken, from being judged,
What's its absolute kryptonite? What's the one thing that shame absolutely cannot survive in the presence of?
The antidote is empathy. That's it. Shame lives in the dark, but empathy is like flipping on the lights. It's that simple, powerful moment when someone else sees our story and they respond not with judgment, but with compassion. It's the experience that tells our entire nervous system, you're safe, you belong. And this is just so critical to understand. Because shame is born from broken connections, it can only be healed within healthy connection. As psychotherapist Patricia DeYoung puts it, we simply cannot do this work alone. We have to have at least one safe relationship where we can finally experience the empathy we need to start rewriting those old stories.
So how can we actually apply this when we're in the thick of it? This 4Rs framework is a great practical path. First, you just recognize what's happening. Then you respect the fact that this reaction is an old survival strategy that once helped you. Next, you regulate your nervous system. Seriously, sometimes just one deep breath is enough. And only then can you consciously restory, choosing a new response that feels more like who you are today.
And to do that restoring work, you need the right tools. Think of these 4 Cs as the shovels you use to dig yourself out. You need the courage to be vulnerable, the compassion to be kind to yourself when you stumble, the curiosity to question those old stories, and of course, the connection that makes it all possible.
And this really brings us to the ultimate goal here. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming authentic. See, true belonging isn't about fitting in. It's about having the courage to show up as our messy, imperfect selves, and finally knowing that we are worthy of connection exactly as we are.
So, I'll leave you with this. Shame gets its power from the stories that we keep locked away in silence. But by bringing them into the light, with courage, with compassion, with connection, we start to take that power back, one moment at a time. The only question left is, what new story are you ready to tell?